I am Natalie Naman and you are listening to my podcast, Real Talk with Nat. This is episode 2 and we are here today with my first guest.
Hello!
Ellen Bisci. I have said it right, haven't I?
Correct.
Perfect. Can we just discuss that until about 2 months ago, I thought your surname was Bisci.
Everyone says it like that. It's fine. I'm used to it.
But I know it now, so it's all good. So we are here with Ellen. Ellen, do you want to give a bit of an intro to yourself? Let people know a little bit about you.
Yeah, so I'm Ellen. I'm 28. I live in northwest London and I've had a bit of a journey, haven't I?
To say the least, yeah.
So I was born in Harrow, as I say, and I had a really good childhood up until I was 9. And when I was 9, I was diagnosed with acute promyelocytic leukemia. And I think to be diagnosed with cancer at any age is crazy. But I think when you're diagnosed so young, it was a huge, huge shock for myself, my family, and I just missed the normality of everyday life, of being at school and seeing my friends, and instead being in hospital for that time.
With that, when you found out when you were 9, what was the lead up to that? How did you think, hang on a minute, something's not quite right here?
So I literally had bruising, severe bruising over my body, and my mum, well, it was actually one of her friends was like, I think you need to take Ellen to the hospital. And we went to the hospital on the Friday night and they did blood tests. I was sent home, and then I actually went on a school trip, my first big school trip to the Isle of Wight. And I literally got there, had dinner, and they called and were like, the bloods aren't right. So my parents had to get the last ferry back to the Isle of Wight to collect me, and then straight to Great Ormond Street. So it was wild.
So really quick.
Really quick, because with the type of leukemia that I had, it just is fate. You can die really quick, basically. It just attacks the body really quickly. So I think at the time when you're 9, I don't think there was any fear of death, because you're just you just think you're ill and you're going to be better, and then that's it. But just under 3 years later, as you know, I was diagnosed again. And that time, when I was 12, I knew what was coming. The fear was there. I was older. And that's when I think I was like, am I going to survive this? And it's crazy because you think about it now, and I speak about it a lot. But you look back and you're like, it's crazy. I see kids of 9 now or 12, and I'm like, how did I actually deal with this at that age? But
it's almost like a blessing, isn't it, to be so young sometimes, because, like you said, you didn't really know any different at the time. Obviously, the second time when you were 12, it was different. But that first time, you've got no life experience as such. You've got nothing to compare it to, which is a blessing, as awful as it is.
So true. And I think at that point, it probably impacted my parents more even than me, because they knew the consequence of all of it and dealing with it. And at that point we were in hospital for 6 months, so my mum and my aunt would take turns with being in hospital with me each night, come back and forth, and then my dad would visit. So it impacts the whole family. It's not, we were fortunate that I didn't have any siblings, in the sense that there wasn't that complication as well, trying to look after a sibling, but it was tough. And I think it was horrendous. But I think I almost look back at that time now and think that was pretty plain sailing compared to what then happened.
What was coming.
So I had just started secondary school. I was thriving. I was really academic. I had a really good circle of friends at school. I loved it. I'd been at the school since I was 2.5, so I knew everyone there. And then I had different symptoms. I had really bad pains in my legs and headaches, and we kept going back to the GP. And at that point, there wasn't social media. There was no awareness that I'd relapsed. We when I had all these symptoms, looking back now, I'm like, why didn't we go to push more? But at the time, we just didn't know. We didn't think that cancer could come back a second time. So I kept going back to the GP, and it wasn't. He just said it was growing pains and that I needed to exercise more.
Just on that, was there any, so obviously you went back to the GP and nothing came of that. Was there any tests that had to be done at that point, or was the doctor literally just like, it's growing pains?
Yeah, he literally did nothing.
That's crazy.
It's so bad. It is so bad.
That's so crazy.
But the thing is, because I work with a charity now, we were looking into this, and a GP will probably only see one case of childhood cancer in their career.
Really?
Because it's still, I think it's about 4,500 children are diagnosed each year, so it's quite a small percentage. So that's the thing, like there needs to be more education into GPs, but
wow,
it is what it, you know what I mean. You have to deal with where you are now. You can't sit back and think, which obviously is mind. You know, it comes into that as well.
Yeah.
So eventually, I got to the hospital one night with a really bad headache. But again, we had issues at the hospital because they sent me home with like it's a migraine. And then it wasn't until, that was a weekend, it wasn't until the Monday that the consultant had looked at the brain scan. I was like, there's something not right here. She's had a stroke. And then it all started again.
You had the stroke when you were 12.
So I had that first that was just like a mini stroke.
Yeah.
Diagnosed with the leukemia again, straight onto intensive chemotherapy because they didn't, and then it was a month into chemo that I had the massive 2 strokes, which were on Easter 2008.
And what did that look like?
I literally went from someone who was like an A-star student, suddenly I couldn't say my name, I couldn't speak to my family, I couldn't communicate, I couldn't walk, I couldn't talk. Like literally the only thing that would come out of my mouth was that I needed the toilet. Like that was just the like automatic thing. Like it wasn't that I needed the toilet, it was just the only thing that would come out. It's really weird, the brain, like it's just one thing. It's strange.
So our brains are just crazy things, aren't they?
I know, it's wild. Wow. But I knew every time I needed something, I knew what I needed, but I couldn't vocalise it, and that was really frustrating. It was the worst time. I think the stroke, for me was the worst thing. Like,
really?
Just, 100%. And also, so then I had to start like going to, physios. I had to see a physio every day, an occupational therapist every day, speech and language therapist every day, whilst also being on like the highest doses of chemo. So I felt like shit, basically.
Yeah.
And my auntie's a physio, so she was like doing everything 24/7 because we just wanted me back.
Yeah.
Doing it because they said that I probably would never walk or talk again, and I think.
Wow.
I know it's wild though, isn't it? But I think you don't believe it. Like you just keep doing everything you can. You're like, I'm not.
When they told you that, what was your initial? Do you remember when they told you that? And do you remember like what was your thought process when they told you?
I don't have a huge recollection, to be honest. But I think for me it was just more like, I did. I was like, no, I can't live like this.
Yeah.
Because I think when you're in that, it was hell. Like I can honestly say it was hell when I had that stroke, the first few weeks and months, and I was like, I can't live like this forever. You can't. It's like when you in the first episode when you mentioned it, you can't, can you? You're like, I need to do something, anything I can do to get out of this.
I find it so interesting because you hear of so many different stories and cases of people with illnesses and life-threatening illnesses, and some people do just accept it.
Yeah.
And they go, I've been told this, and that's it. And I'm, like we were just saying, the mind plays such a massive role. And if you had just accepted that information that you would never be able to walk and talk again, you probably wouldn't be walking or talking.
No.
Like that is the truth, right?
100%. And I think the thing is, I was really fortunate as well that I had, I was in Great Ormond Street, so I had daily rehab, which a lot of people wouldn't necessarily get if you were at home. Faith was a big thing as well for me. We're Christians, and I think you have to have that faith and that guidance and that belief that things will improve.
Yeah, totally. And I know we've spoken about this before a lot, about faith and whatever that looks like
exactly,
to you,
because it is different. Whether it's the universe, any religion or belief, it's all. It's all one kind of ending, isn't it?
You're just believing that there's something bigger than you that is going to help you get to that outcome. It's just having that belief in that.
100%.
So that all happened when you were 12. How long was the kind of immediate recovery period after that? So you were in Great Ormond Street.
Yeah, so I relapsed in the February, and I would say we didn't get out probably until the October.
Wow.
So it was a long time. Treatment, I had obviously chemo initially, then I had arsenic treatment, which was a new treatment at the time. One of the first people in the UK to have that. So that was a big thing. Well, it's like the poison. It's literally the poison, and so you had to have like the treatment every day. You had 5 days on, 2 days off, I think, for a month, and I had 2 blocks of that. We were going back and forth into the hospital. Some was done at home and some was done as an inpatient.
Mm-hmm.
But it was less invasive than chemo. I felt a bit better. I didn't feel 100%, and I couldn't have gone to school or done anything much, but I wasn't completely ill with it.
Did you have the chemo when you were 9?
Yeah, and I did have it when I was 12 initially, before I had the arsenic. But now the treatments have changed so much. It would just be, say, like arsenic treatment, whereas before, I had to have the chemo initially because they thought the leukemia was in my brain, which is why I had to have the chemo. It's all technical. So I had that, and then I can honestly say that I was pretty ill for probably like 8 or 9 years after that. Like, I wasn't at school. So that was 2008. And I was 12. I didn't go back to school until I was coming up to 17.
Wow. At all?
No, we tried. Because of the stroke, I really struggled in school. So we employed a TA at one point, and she was great. But literally for the year that she was there, I would say I was probably at school 6 days.
Wow.
And she's doing all the notes and everything. And I just felt ill because I was suddenly getting these late effects that we'll discuss in a minute. But I just was not. That was like a really tough time because socially I wasn't seeing my friends. I can look back now and it was tough for them. They're young, 12, 13, 14, dealing with it. But I didn't have a circle of friends. I was very, very dependent on my family. And that emotionally, I would say that was probably the toughest bit. And also like the adjustment of being in hospital and then suddenly not having all the nurses and doctors around you, and when you're still not 100%, it's really difficult mentally.
Yeah. So when you were in Great Ormond Street, and just during that period actually because I imagine when you were in Great Ormond Street, education was the last thing on your mind. But after that, when you came home, how did you feel about the fact that you weren't at school and you weren't, part of that education that your friends were going through? Like, what was that like?
I hated it. It was horrendous. And I think the thing is, it was like, it got to the stage where my friends were doing their GCSEs and I just felt like completely lost because I was out of it. But I also felt really ill because I started to get intracranial hypertension, which is fluid on the brain. So I had daily headaches and I was pretty much bedbound. So I was really ill as well.
Yeah.
But I did the social side of it really did impact me hugely.
Was that for that big chunk of time from 12 to 17, was it? You said you were bedbound for the majority?
Yeah, pretty much.
Wow.
And it was difficult. Like it was really, I think that there's been so many things that have been difficult, but that was a really tough time. And I think the friendships, losing my friends as I did, has impacted me to this day now.
Really?
I would say so. This is me being really honest.
Yeah,
now,
good.
The thing is, it has, because I'm better now, and I've got, I've got you, and I've got a really strong circle of friends. But for years, I just think, they're just going to leave me, and I'm not going to have any friends again.
When you were going through all that, is that literally how you felt, that your friends just went?
And I can look back now, and I can think they're young. It was a heck of a lot for them to deal with, and
but that doesn't make it okay.
I know, but.
It's life.
It is.
It's life, we learn, right?
We do.
Yeah.
We do.
Yeah, I think, okay, so hold on. I'm like, oh, so many questions to ask. So
I probably never told you that.
No, I'm learning so much here. That before we came onto this podcast, I had so many questions to ask Ellen, and I was like, no, I'm saving it for the podcast because I know we're going to get into some stuff. So when you say that, that's impacting you until today, and you're worried that friends are kind of going to leave, what does that mean? Does that mean that you not treat friends differently, but you have like almost an inner fear?
Yeah, and I think because I was so ill at that point anyway, around that time when I didn't have the friends, that I didn't have anyone to speak to. So it's not until the last year or two that I've been more able to open up one-to-one with friends about my health. Because everyone knows my health and I'm very open on social media and stuff. But I mean actually the day-to-day. I used to be terrible because I was like, well, if I discuss my health, they're just going to walk away. Because they can't take it on. And it's recently I saw a psychologist, and I said to her, I was like, I think this is impacting me, and I am better. I'm a lot better than I used to be. Yeah. But it's self-confidence in a way as well, that actually I'm worthy and I've got a fabulous circle of friends and I love them and they love me and everything. But It's
powerful.
amazing how it does stick in your head though.
But it's like anything, isn't it? Like we've done so much work together around this stuff, not that specifically, but around how we're literally conditioned to believe certain things because of life experiences. It's our paradigm is what we call it. And, you know, we expect certain realities because of how we've been treated in the past, whether it's through friends, through parents, through school, through what we see on TV and the news, like whatever.
Yeah.
And it's really hard work to unlearn that stuff.
Oh no, it takes time, doesn't it?
And the majority of people, like the fact that you can sit here, and I know that this will have come from a lot of the work you've done on yourself, but the fact that you can sit here and go, my experience between the age of 12 and 17 has actually impacted me today, and I'm so aware of it. That's a small percentage of people have that level of self-awareness. Yeah. So how far have you come, like since then, to realise?
Because I wouldn't have said that 2 years ago since we've internally been
even
working.
A year ago probably you wouldn't have said that.
No, not at all.
God, what a
it's
time.
Wild, isn't it?
It's so wild.
It's wild.
And like just to sit here with you now as well, like you're literally just like, look at you, like all glamorous, like looking amazing, and like you would have no idea that you've been through. Like if we were just sat here talking.
People don't, and that's again, we'll come into it later, but people don't realise the impact, and you look well, but actually there's so much more to it all.
And even we've been out, you know, we've gone for dinner, we've gone for lunches and stuff, and like what you just said, you know, people would look at you and just think, she's a normal girl.
Yeah, which you want.
Which you want, but inside, and inside you might be really, really, really feeling horrendous.
Yeah.
And you would have no idea.
No, well that's the thing, isn't it? But when I was 17, it did all change. I moved schools, which again was really tough because I'd been at this school forever, but I just knew I couldn't stay there. They asked me to leave, and it was very academic. And I moved to a school in central London, college, and I just got 2 GCSEs. So again, this is like, I know you mentioned this in your first episode, but exams aren't everything.
Literally.
At all. And I did my 2 GCSEs, and then the second year I did one more. And then I was like, you know what, I'm done with education. I can't be dealing with this like stress and trying to learn, because I'd go in the classroom and it was like classrooms of 6, so they were tiny, so it was really great. And I'd learn it and I'd be like getting A's in, say, maths, and then the next day I'd go in again and it would be like nothing. Like I hadn't learnt it. Like we were
couldn't remember anything.
And that was just getting me down. So it wasn't until I'd been in that class and learnt it 10 times that it would stick in the brain. And
memory loss is definitely a thing that we can both relate to now. So was that the memory loss that came from the stroke?
Yes. Yeah. So and that's with me today. I mean, today I've got my notes here. All written down, going through.
We both do, because neither of us remember anything.
So then I was like, I'm just done with education. I can't be doing this. So I went and I was working part-time with children with special needs, which I loved. And then I did go back to college to do a childcare course, and then I had to have brain surgery. So I was like,
as you do, you say that so casually. Just had to have some brain surgery.
But it's like my normality, isn't it? And then people are looking at me like, Ellen, what is, like, it's wild.
But you normalise it, don't you? Because you've been going through this stuff your whole life.
Yeah.
So, and I've always known this about you since I've known you. And to a degree, I can relate very, very slightly because of what I went through. No way near to what you have.
Still.
But, you look at people who moan about like the smallest things, and everyone has every right to moan about whatever they want to moan about, but when you have been through something which is literally when you've almost died basically, and for you numerous times, let's be honest, more than once, the little things you're just like, oh, whatever, that really isn't important. It really makes you see the value in life 100%.
And you do. I look at friends and I'm like, this is ridiculous. But I have to remember, and I am very good, because I know my aunt says this, that I'm very good at being like, that's their life, isn't 100%. It? And they're really struggling with that.
And they're only basing their struggles on their own experiences.
Yeah, and it's all relative, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. No, absolutely. Okay, so you had to go and get brain surgery. Should we just go rewind a little bit?
So basically, I've been left with a lot of late effects from the treatment that I had. And this is something people don't realise, and I'm always talking about it, because 2 out of 3 children who survive cancer will have late effects. So it's a high percentage, but the problem is people don't realise it because before people weren't surviving. So we're now at a stage that people have got these late effects, and mine is lengthy, my list, and people don't normally get this many, but the biggest one for me is the intracranial hypertension, which is fluid on the brain, something that I've had 13 brain surgeries
13. When was the first brain surgery?
2010.
Was that when you were 18?
2010, yeah. No, younger than that.
Yeah. My math. We don't remember anything. We don't do math.
I was about 15.
15.
Christmas Eve.
Merry Christmas.
Rainy day, yeah. And I had my first shunt put in then. I'd had one small brain surgery before that just to check some things. And yeah, I had my first shunt put in, and then I've had 12 more since. And
that's a lot of brain surgery.
It is. But again, you normalise it. It's just like you go in and it's just...
Yeah. I do know what you mean, but it's still
intense.
A lot. So how often, not how often, but what are the gaps? So you had the first one when you were 15.
So I had the first shunt then, and then unfortunately it broke. But that's another story. We'll leave that bit just because there was a lot again that it had broken, and I was ill for a while, and we didn't get it sorted. The hospital was useless, so we had to go privately. So yeah, literally had to go privately, and it had been broken from the beginning.
Yeah.
So basically, the shunts, if there's newer ones available that would be better suited to me, then and I'm going through a bad patch, then sometimes they'll change the shunt. But this shunt at the moment has been in about 7 or 8 years, and it literally just drains the fluid from my brain. It used to drain it into my stomach, but now it's into the chest. And then I also had little monitors put in just so that they know the exact pressure in my brain, and then because you can adjust the shunt. It's very technical, but my most recent brain surgery was in 2021 during the pandemic, which was really tough because I couldn't have anyone come in, and I have to look at that, and I think that was pure strength from me because it wasn't easy at all.
No, I can imagine. And with the brain surgeries that you've had, how do you prepare for that? What does it look like? How long are you in hospital for? Like if someone is listening to this and they know that they're going to go in for brain surgery, whether it's the same reason for you or not, could you let them know a little bit more about what that looks like? How to prepare for that?
If you're having a new shunt put in, I think it's 3 maybe 5 days you're in hospital for afterwards. The worst bit for me is that they have to shave your head, and it used to be like half a head shaved, and I used to laugh with my neurosurgeon. I'd be like, you cannot take too much hair off because it's like that. It takes ages to grow.
Yeah.
And I'd already lost it twice anyway from chemo and stuff, so that used to be the worst thing. But I think having people around you, I think my family are great, and I think it's just you just have to get on with it. And I know that sounds really blasé, but there's no like special thing. You've just got to take it hour by hour, and you are going to feel rubbish, and it is going to be really difficult, but it's also going to save your life, because if I didn't have that, I'd lose my sight.
Yeah.
And that's no good either. You die if the pressure was too high. So that sounds really rude, doesn't it? But you just got to get on with it.
You've got to be like that though, haven't you? Like I'm, you know me, I'm all for just say it how it is, because ultimately that's what people need to hear. I think with whether it's illness, whatever it is, I think so many people just fluff things up to make things sound better and easier for other people. And don't get me wrong, there's definitely a place for having like a softer approach to things. But sometimes when you're going through something, you need to just know what it is I'm going through. You need to just accept that it's to help you, it's to save your life. If I don't do this, I'm going to die.
What
it's probably not too bad, right? You have to that's how you got to be.
Exactly.
But I love that.
I think one thing is that just always, with any like health thing, is just push with medical professionals. That's the biggest thing for me. If you need pain relief, tell them 10 times.
Yeah. You've become very good at that, haven't you?
Yeah, I used to be terrible.
Yeah.
I mean, my mum, I used to get like my mum or aunt to like speak for me, but now I'm like, it's not right. You need to say though, don't you? And not in a horrible way. I'm not rude or anything, but you've just got to say it, because it's not, you know what's best for you, your body kind of thing.
100%. I think that's a massive, massive thing. I think I speak about this often in terms of like your guts and your gut feeling, like know when something's not right. So if you're ever feeling like something's not right, just go and check.
Yeah.
You know,
100%.
what's the worst that can happen is that there is something wrong, and you'll go get it sorted. And the best case scenario is you come home and absolutely everything's fine.
And piss the doctors off if you need to email 3 times about something, because we all know what the NHS is like at the moment and stuff. But
absolutely. Yeah, we have lots of stories about the NHS, don't we?
I mean, it's great, but I think long-term care is not so great. But,
I mean, it saved both of our lives.
Yeah, so we have to be grateful.
We are grateful, but it can be absolutely shite as well, let's be honest.
Yeah.
Before we carry on talking about that, what's your relationship? Because I know you're very, very close with your auntie.
Yeah.
Did that all start, were you very close with her before you fell ill?
Yes, we were very close. So, we were very close before, but I think even more so since I've been ill. She stopped work as well. My mum stopped work, and they were just there with me. And I think, not everyone would do that. I don't know if people would. I just think we're a very close family, and she's like a second mum to me. She's a second parent, really, because she's just done everything she can for me. And I do, for me, it's normal, isn't it? But then I think I look at other families, and maybe people wouldn't have done that. So I'm grateful massively grateful.
Yeah, you're super close. You guys are always together, and I'm always like, oh, it's so nice. Like even today, she was just here.
She come to get the dog, so the dog's not making a noise.
I love that though. That's so
but
nice.
It is lovely. Yeah. Really nice. And like Kay and I, it was like from when I was small, we'd go to church together. So that was always our thing, like on a Sunday. And it's lovely.
Yeah, and really having that support unit when you're going through something like what you're going through, game changing, isn't it?
100%.
Yeah.
And I think the thing is, like, so many people, I don't know, you've probably heard of it, like with what you do, but there's this thing about codependency being such a bad and negative thing. And I think when you're going through something like cancer, what else are you meant to do? Like, we are codependent. I would say probably we are even now still codependent on each other, the three of us. And we are like, obviously, we all do have our own lives now. But what else? I don't think it's a negative thing. It's just how you cope in the hardest of times. And I think, but it just annoys me when people talk so negatively about codependency.
Yeah, totally. I think it's everything's in context, isn't it? Like, if you're talking about romantic relationships, that's a whole different topic in codependency. But when you're talking about it in something like this,
life and death,
obviously that's not a problem. But I think that's important to talk about that for sure.
Definitely. And it's been, because it's just been the three of us. And the thing is, I talk about it all so easily, but it has been a journey. And there were years where we really had to fight with doctors about my late effects and what was going on. And then obviously the whole school situation and finding me a new school. Like, it was really tough. And I don't think without, we were just so lucky that Kay was there and could support, but I had to support my mum as well, because I can't imagine what it's like for her.
Yeah, well, that's it, isn't it? It's you mentioned it at the beginning, and I spoke about this in my first episode. Whilst it's always a traumatic experience for you, for the person, I think it's so much more traumatic for those who love you and those who are around you.
It's horrendous, because I know when friends are ill, I'm like, oh my, like, you just feel it so much, don't you? So to be watching that day in, day out for years, it changes you, and I think it has changed all of us.
Yeah, I can only imagine. So the late effects, so you had the brain fluids.
Yeah.
What other things have you been experiencing?
I've got epilepsy, but I'm really lucky with the epilepsy that as soon as I went on medication, the seizures stopped. But again, that was difficult, because I mean, I know a lot of people have epilepsy, but to be so out of control, just have a seizure, like nothing you can do about it. And for that, I think that was again one of the worst things, the epilepsy.
And did they come from at what age did that start?
So they started. Well, it was probably around the intracranial hypertension. I think the seizures were caused by that, but that wasn't treated. So initially, so that was when I was about 13 or 14. They started, and I had, I don't know, probably about 10.
Consistently.
Yeah, I was having them quite frequently at night, and then as soon as I went on medication, they stopped.
Yeah.
So that was a real blessing.
You still on that medication now?
Yeah, and I will be for life probably, and that's fine. I'm on like 25, 30 medications a day at the moment.
Are you?
It's mental.
Wow.
I mean, it's not tablets a day, but it is a lot.
That is a lot.
But it's like the mental thing of every day being like, oh, I've got to take this. And it's obviously, I know it's to save me. But there's occasional days when I'm like, I really can't be bothered to take this.
Fuck this, stupid pills. I can imagine. I remember when I was taking my, when I first came out of hospital, and I think I had about 25 pills to take. Obviously, it wasn't for my whole life. It was probably for, I remember it started off as like 25 in the morning, 25 in the evening, and
deal with that.
Honestly, I was literally just like popping pills left, right, and centre, and then gradually it would go down. But even then, I just thought, oh my god, this is so long. I just can't be arsed.
No, you can't.
So to have to do that
Day
every
in,
day,
out, so much, and then just like the admin of like ordering the meds, collecting the meds.
do you know one of those little pots with all the different?
I have them. They make them up now, my chemist, because with my memory, I was just. I mean, that's a lot of tablets to work out every day. So he now does me a box each week that's got them all in.
So do you just go pick them up for the week and then you've
got
them?
They does a month. So,
yeah.
And then each box is week by week.
Oh, that's something.
That's better.
That's a little bit better.
God.
Okay, so the epilepsy.
And then I've got chronic fatigue, which again, it's just exhausting. And I think that
literally
it is, literally exhausting. It's just I'll get up and I'm exhausted constantly. I think it is slightly better now.
Yeah.
Because I'm better at pacing, and Nat and I have discussed this many a time.
We've discussed this many times because Ellen is very like all or nothing. I have noticed. And we'll talk more about our journey later, but you definitely do sometimes go a little bit full pelt, don't you? And then you suffer for it. I do tell you off sometimes.
She does. So yeah, I'm better at that. We'll discuss that later. But I've got issues with my thyroid. I've got chronic migraine, which I've got a headache pretty much all the time.
Really? All the time?
Yeah, I mean, it comes and goes, but pretty much at the moment it's constant. But again, you just live with it. But I had a period where they were better, and I think because they've been worse again since I recently had COVID, that's been a real adjustment, because I'm like, it's just horrible. It's not nice at all. And of course, you can't take meds all the time because of rebound headaches and nightmare. But anyway, it's fine. It's all good.
So positive. I love it.
I mean, catch me on the day when it's really bad, then I might not be saying the same.
Yeah. But it's important to say that as well, isn't it? You know, I think you are such a positive person, and you have, you've done so amazingly over these years, but it's important to let people know that sometimes you have days and you think, fuck this.
Yeah, I can't be doing
No, and it's horrendous, and you cry and you feel like shit, and you're actually quite good at sharing that now.
Yeah.
On your socials and stuff.
This is the thing, I wouldn't normally. Like, it would always just be my mum, and my mum does get the brunt of it, like, because obviously that's when I'm at home and I'm not feeling well. But I'm better at sharing it, because I think it's important, because I share a lot on social media, because sometimes you don't want to just text a friend and be like, I'm not feeling well, but equally you want to share it, so I just put it out there, because it's not, every day isn't roses. Yeah. It isn't. And I think the thing is, I make it look easier than it is. Yeah. I think.
Yeah, you definitely do. I would say that. And I think it's, unless you have the deep conversations with you, which obviously I do have with you, but for people who wouldn't have those conversations with you,
they wouldn't have a clue.
They'd have no idea.
And that's going back to the whole thing about the friendships and childhood. I never used to discuss it at all, and I've probably only got, not only because it's still a lot of friends, but there's a very small amount of friends that I will have deep conversations about my health, and that, it's just as it is. And we're all the same, aren't we? We've all.
Yeah, 100%. And I think when it comes to friends, you've always got different
friends for different things. Yeah. I agree completely.
I'm the same. I've got, there's not even a handful. I would probably list maybe 3 or 4 friends who I would go to for things that I wouldn't go to anyone. I wouldn't even dream of speaking to other people about. And then those friends I maybe wouldn't speak to about other things. Yeah. And I think it's okay to have that. I think
you discussed it in one of your courses, didn't you? And I remember it really stuck with me,
because that was a big topic for you, wasn't it? That all that kind of stuff. Yeah. Relationships, friendships, and I think it's okay to voice that to people, because I think sometimes as well, especially when you're younger, when you're growing up, some friendships can be a little bit bitchy sometimes, especially when we're, you know, you're in
younger,
your girl groups
years,
and and it's just about not being afraid to say that and say, you know, it's nothing personal.
No, it's just,
I'm just talking to someone else about it, you know, it's fine. It's good to know that. So,
and then I've got POTS, which is postural static tachycardia syndrome, which basically means that when I stand up, my heart rate shoots up. We know this from our sessions. So that causes headache, sickness, dizziness, and stuff. So that's been a bit of a juggle to work out.
Is that an instant? So every time you stand up, you get that?
I mean, at the moment it's stabilised because I'm on multiple medications, but if I wasn't,
it
would be, I remember once, like, I stood up and it had got, my heart rate was say 55, 60, and it would just go up to like 180.
Just from standing up?
Just from standing. It's wild.
That is crazy.
So you feel rough from that, obviously.
And then it's an instant, like, I feel sick, I feel dizzy, I need to sit down.
Yeah.
And then
I never used to pass out or anything, but some people get where they're passing out constantly. I mean, I can't imagine what that's like, but that's stable at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, there's a lot going on, and then obviously the long-term impact of the stroke, which I really struggle with, like facial recognition, or, you know, I meet people for like a third time and I'm like, who are you? And I'm like, I've got no clue at all. It's embarrassing.
Do you recognise them, or do you not recognise them at all?
Sometimes not at all.
But you know you've met them before?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really difficult. And then, so that's the embarrassing side of it, because again, I look fine and I'm like, oh my God, I've then got to explain it. And I used to always be like, and it's saying, we'll come to it later, but like when I do a talk, I'd be like, I've had a stroke, so if I get something wrong, that's why. And now I'm like, I don't really say it, because I feel like it doesn't need to. I think I think you and I discussed it, didn't we?
Yeah.
We were like, it's not something you need to say like instantly. And again, it's reframing like your whole persona.
Yeah. It's almost like you were preparing them if you were to make a mistake.
And then you might not at all.
And you might not at all. And, you know, you can always, if you feel like you need to, if you did make a mistake when you're speaking, you can then just say, oh, sorry, and then you can explain a little bit. But
it's like constantly preparing, because I went to an event with a friend and I knew some people there, but she didn't. And I was like, okay, so when we get there, if I can't remember their name, you're going to have to say like, hi, I'm whatever her name is, I won't bring her up. Can you, like, what's your name? Right, so then I haven't got the embarrassment of trying to introduce them. But it's like constantly, and I'm probably worry about it too much, but I was like voice noting her the day before, being like, this is what you've got to do. Yeah.
Do you know what? I still to this day don't know if this is post-illness or not for me, but I'm so bad with names. And, you know, a lot of my work involves
meeting a lot of
people,
constantly.
Different classes, different names. And there's some people who I know their names, obviously. But there are some people I have no idea what their names are. And it's far too late along the journey to be like, what's your name? So I can relate to that to a degree. But I don't know if that's just, if I've always been like that, or if that's because of post-encephalitis. You don't know. You don't know.
Yeah. So that's that bit. I've got weakness on my right side. And then the biggest one for me has been the heart failure.
Yeah.
So I was diagnosed with that in 2019, had symptoms, again, dismissed multiple times.
What were the symptoms?
So I had breathlessness, like literally walking up a flight of stairs, I would be like completely breathless. I had headaches, which isn't a typical sign, but it can be kind of thing. Dizziness. And I was like, this isn't normal for me. Again, it's knowing you're normal. I was like, this is not normal for me. So again, we had to go privately, because I was like, this isn't right. And they were going to refer me, and then they didn't. And again, it's I think 5% of people who have had high dose chemo, anthracycline, the one that I had, will get late effects. So it's a small percentage, but it still happens. So they should be aware. And I went, we went privately, and I was diagnosed with it, and I had kind of like, they'd caught it early in a sense, like it wasn't the worst they've seen, but it was a shock, because you're meant to have a scan every 5 years from basically for the rest of your life, and I'd gone down quite significantly just within, I think it was like 18 months since I had the last scan. So I was like, if I'd left that 5 years, I probably would have been dead. Like, it's just mad, isn't it? And that's been difficult. I mean, you know, it was just after that really that I met you, wasn't it? Yeah. And because it just goes up and down. It's like a roller coaster. And for me, like COVID's really impacted it every time I've had it, and I'm having to keep changing medications, and you feel rubbish from that.
I mean, that's literally happening now, isn't it?
Yeah,
Really?
yeah.
You're going through it now.
It's tough, and I think the thing is, people don't realise. I know at the time, 2019, I would say 12 years post chemo, I could not believe that chemo I'd had 12 years before could suddenly randomly impact my heart like this.
Yeah.
And I just couldn't believe it. And that's when my kind of advocacy stuff started. I was like, I need to make a change. Like, people aren't aware of this.
So had you had, within that 12 years, there was nothing surrounding the heart failure at all?
I was having scans completely normal. Like, I'd had issues with the heart on treatment, but it normalised. And I was just having scans and there was nothing. And then suddenly, bang.
That was it.
It just hits.
Out of nowhere.
Wild.
That is wild. God, what a wild life.
What a wild
life.
It's not easy, is it? No.
It's not. God. Okay, so that was all happening 2019, 2020.
Then COVID hit.
Yeah.
So I stopped work 2019 because of the heart failure, and I was just due to go back to work in the
What were you doing for work?
I was working with children with special needs.
Okay.
Really loved it.
Yeah.
Like locally, like perfect. And then COVID hit, and that was mad times, wasn't it? I mean, for everyone, it was mad times, but I think for us, even more so. I was in the shielding category, and it was just, what was it, like 2 years in the house?
Yeah.
It was wild, wasn't it?
Honestly, when you look back at it, are you not just like, what even was that? What the hell was that?
It's crazy. You can't imagine it now.
No.
Though. Like, we wouldn't have even been able to sit like this.
But I feel like, I don't know, and this is, we probably shouldn't go down this rabbit hole, but I just don't feel like it would be the same if it was to happen now. I feel like we've learned so much from that. It would be different. But yeah, that's a whole other podcast episode. So we won't go down that road. So COVID happened.
When did I meet you? I think it must have. What was it, like the July maybe? No, I think it was earlier than that.
Well, COVID happened. Was it March?
Had I had had we done a couple of sessions then? I think maybe.
I think you had done, because I started my group fitness sessions, didn't I? Literally pretty much as soon as lockdown hit. And I think you'd done a couple of those, because Kelly, our mutual friend Kelly, she'll be watching this, she'll be like, oh, the middleman of like so many friendships. I think you did a couple of those, and then I remember, I think Kelly actually came to you and said, I think, because it was when your heart failure was bad, and you came to me to help get you back to normal.
Yeah, that was it. And then, that was probably the mid 2020. And then we did that.
And we did sort your heart failure out.
It did well, didn't it?
Yeah.
And then the mindset stuff started. I think because it was such a roller coaster, I was like, I think I need some more guidance, mindset stuff.
Yeah. I think, because I did a few group things, didn't I, at the beginning?
Yeah, just one-off sessions, isn't it?
Just to help people in lockdown. You came onto those. God, lockdown, honestly. We had such a community in lockdown.
It was crazy. I mean, if you think,
wasn't it?
But we wouldn't have half of. I wouldn't have. I know you knew a lot of the girls, but like I wouldn't know any of them. I don't think if it wasn't for that.
Well, that started, and obviously, I did know a lot of them, but definitely friendships and bonds were like massively formed for so many people during that time. Within all that community stuff that we did. Yeah, so you did a few of the group things, and then.
It continued, really, didn't it?
Yeah. I think after I did my first 6-week challenge or 8-week challenge or something.
Christmas that year.
Christmas.
I did that.
You did that. And that's when you started getting into the mindset coaching a little bit more, like on a deeper level.
Yeah.
And then over that next year, I think we did a few group things.
Here and there, didn't we?
And then we did some one-to-one stuff. But before we talk about that, what would you have said your mindset was like before?
I genuinely think, and again, it takes a lot to say this, but I was very health focused. Do you think? Would you agree?
Yeah, I would 100% agree.
And if you asked me, because the thing is, I think I was at a stage where I'd been off work for a year. Yeah. I'd then had a year or two at home shielding, I was like, what is my life? Like, there isn't anything else apart from my health.
Mm.
And I was very much like, if someone met me and they'd be like even, you know, like, "Oh, tell me a bit about yourself," I'd be like, what can I tell? Like, there's nothing going on. So I was very much like in that headspace. I don't know, I would say, like, although I'm not confident, I wouldn't say I'm not non-confident. I'm like in the middle, but I'm not as confident as I am now. I wouldn't speak up. If a friend had said something to me, I'd just let it go, or I'd let it really get into me, and then I'd be really upset and I wouldn't be able to share my feelings. The thing is, you look back now and it's just, what would you say? I'm trying to think.
I agree with everything you've just said. I think definitely the confidence is a massive thing, 100%. But like you said, I would never have said, oh, you had no confidence at all. I think you always had a confidence within you, and I think that will have come from your life experience, 100%. But definitely in terms of other elements of your life, in terms of, you know, what you're capable of, and you know,
self-belief,
self-belief, I think
was not there at all.
Yeah, and not surrounding your health, because you 100% always have been like, I'm going to get through this, whatever that is.
But just socially and all round.
And I think external things, whether that's a job, whether that's a friend, you know, whatever, definitely the confidence, 100%. And I think you were just a bit more reserved. Yeah, I was going to say shy, but I think reserved is a better word. Yeah, definitely you've blossomed into...
But I think when you go through a journey like this, it's not even like one thing that happens that you're like, I've changed. It's like everyday things, isn't it? Like, it's the small things that I'm like, oh, like I wouldn't have done that before. I'm having a look here what I've written, because I was writing, when Nat said about this, I was like, I'm going to do my notes. And I started writing this list, and I was like, it's absolutely mad. I think the biggest thing that you've taught me...
There's a long list there.
It's long, it's like a page here. Is that every day doesn't have to be 100... Like, not every day doesn't have to be 100%, but I think I used to... If I was unwell, I used to put myself down because I was feeling a bit low about it. And I think it's you being like, actually, Ellen, that is completely normal. Obviously, you don't want to dwell on it for weeks on end.
Yeah.
But actually, it's really normal to just have a day at home and in bed if you're not feeling well. And I think, going back to this whole situation about me going out too much, it's that...
wild child over there.
It's that when I'm unwell, I can't do anything.
Yeah.
So when I'm then well, and I know I do agree with what you say, when I'm well, I'm like, I want to do everything. I want to get straight back into it. And I'm very good at bouncing back, but I am learning to pace it a bit.
Yeah. That's a massive lesson, though, I think, for everyone, because I think we're all guilty of doing that. And often we don't stop until we're forced to stop, which is what happens with you, which is definitely, I go through that now and then. We all do it. It's just about catching yourself before it gets to that point. Definitely. And I think definitely, I'm not sure if you would relate to this. You probably would, just from media and social media and stuff like that. But definitely from the age of around 22, 23 to probably about 2 years ago, even a year ago, I'd say that 10-year period, that chunk, hustle culture, and that whole culture of like, you've got to go.
Yeah,
you shouldn't sleep. Sleeping is for weak people, and like all that bollocks.
Wild,
which literally, I have been coached by people saying that. Like, when you think about that, you're like, what? And, you know, we grew up in that.
So and that was the only way for success, wasn't it?
Yeah, and that's not anybody's fault. You know, that's not... I'm not saying I shouldn't have been coached that way, because they were coached that way by other people, and that was just the culture. So I think it's kind of, again, goes back to what we were saying earlier about unlearning these patterns of behaviour.
Yeah, which is not
that's
easy,
it.
is it?
Yeah, burnout is not okay.
No,
especially when you're going through all of this.
And that's the thing. It goes back to the thing that I think. And obviously it's the best way to be that I've got a normal life. But I think sometimes you have to realise that it's not... I'm not saying nobody's got a perfect normal life, but I think because I try and like forget about it, you've also got to remember that it's there.
Yeah.
So it's like getting that balance where it's not in your head, but also it's being realistic.
Yeah. And also...
And that's not easy. That's because my health is so up and down. That is something that I struggle with, I would say, even to this day, than navigating that.
Yeah.
Which I'm better at it, definitely.
So much.
But it's still an issue, I would say.
Yeah, definitely. And even like what you were just saying, you know, yes, you do live a normal life, but actually sometimes it's not a normal life. And you know, when we joke about you do so much, but actually when you are doing too much,
it's like
it's
less
not
than
that
you'll do.
it's not that much.
It's like 2 things a week.
Yeah.
Like we're here today and we've got a meeting later, another meeting. So tomorrow's nothing.
Yeah.
And even Thursday I've booked out as well.
Yeah.
So that's like, whereas for you, we work tomorrow, you know, so.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's really important for you to share that because, you know, like I said, we're joking about you do so much, but what that looks like to you for someone who suffers with chronic fatigue and just always has a headache and, you know, sometimes suffers from this and that, you've got to be even more restful and more aware.
And I think that I am better. I know definitely in the last few months I've just been like, right, 2 social things a week.
Yeah.
And that's not a lot, you know, that's not really a lot, but for me I'm like, that's how I can just do it, like something midweek, something one day on the weekend.
It's so important to share that.
But you've got to stick to it, and that's not easy because then you've got friends and trying to fit everyone in.
And then we've got our boundaries that we need to speak about, which that's a whole other topic. But yeah,
I also think that like the acceptance with the health has been a huge thing, and I was probably starting with that when I met you, but it took me a long time to accept that this is my life and to pace things and balance, and that was huge.
When do you think you really, really, really hit that nail on the head that you've accepted it?
Have I accepted
Yesterday?
Tomorrow? I would say I'm pretty much there.
Yeah.
But that's because my life is more normal now.
Yeah.
But it's obviously in the last year, there's been huge change. I don't think I will ever accept it 100%, but I think I'm pretty much as good as I'm going to get with it. Yeah. I would say.
I think you're pretty damn good, to be fair. I think you're pretty much there. You're definitely there. You're definitely there.
Confident in my own decisions. Now, this is something Nat taught me because she was like, I remember, you know when something sticks in your head, and I've heard her say it a couple of times. When my brain, this is it, it's gone now.
It's alright.
It's coming. It's going to come back.
Just think.
She's like, basically, you don't need to ask anyone's opinion on anything because you should be able to
trust yourself.
Yeah, trust yourself.
Yeah.
And I know that I used to hear her say that, and I was like, I ask everyone everything, like constantly, and I'm better at being like, right, I've made that decision, yes or no, done.
Yeah, that's so important. That is so important, and that took me a long time to get to that point. And I think once you get to that point as well, you become so much more aware of other people doing it.
Yeah.
So you probably now notice friends coming to you or family coming to you saying, "What do you think I should do?" Because you used to do that, exactly. Whereas now you just know. And that's such a beautiful place to be. To have that confidence and trust within yourself is just,
it's good.
It's a really, really good place to be. Because that also just shows that how in tune and in alignment you are with your soul.
I know, but it's true, isn't it? Definitely. And I know also, you know, we've mentioned about the friendships, but I think also I'm very much like a people pleaser. Mm-hmm. And that has changed massively in the last year.
Yeah.
I just won't take shit from people.
Yeah.
Because the thing is, I think before I was so dependent on friends that I was like, and I'm not obviously every single close friend in my life I don't want to lose, but also I'm not taking shit. So if they're going to treat me like shit, I'm not dealing with it. I'm walking
Amen
away.
to that. Yeah. But do you know what? That's so amazing that you've got to that point.
But that took time. Again, you know how much that took.
But it does take time. It does take time, and you just have like a moment, don't you, where you go, fuck this.
I can't do it anymore.
Yeah.
And also, I think the thing is like, I think you think in your head it's got to be some massive row with someone.
Yeah.
And actually, no, just step away.
Yeah. And actually, I've definitely experienced this. I know you know this, you know the stories, and I won't go into them here, but what tends to happen for anyone that's listening and this maybe going through anything similar is a friend or friends will treat you a certain way for a really, really long period of time, and it just becomes the norm for you and for them, and you've not said anything to put a boundary up, so they think it's okay. That's not their fault.
No,
it's their fault for being an idiot, but
forget about that bit.
You know what I mean. It's not their fault that you've not set a boundary. That's your responsibility, my responsibility, whoever. And then you get to a point where that behaviour just is not okay. And it's it's never even usually anything drastic.
No, that's what I mean. It's not all, it's just accumulative, isn't it?
And then it's like one comment or one act of behaviour that you think, nah, I don't think so. And then that's it, done. You just know within yourself if it's the right thing. Yeah.
That's the thing. And I think since I've been doing that this year, I genuinely believe, I said this to Mum yesterday, that everything else in my life has changed because I'm not communicating with people who have got negative behaviour.
100%.
And everything else then has just fallen. And don't get me wrong, this year health-wise has been a struggle, but a lot has come into play, hasn't it, this year?
A lot has come into play.
And it's wild though, isn't it? Like one thing, like just changing one thing in your life.
Yeah. But you have to, we talk about this a lot, you have to make space for those new things to come in.
Definitely.
And if there's negative energy, whether that comes from people, surroundings, environments, workplace, relationships, whatever, if there's a negative energy holding space in your life, you are literally blocking new energy, positive energy, the stuff which is, you're blocking it from coming in. And that's why it's not a coincidence. The minute you let go of somebody, something, a situation, usually like the next day,
it's like
something happened. Yeah, the universe goes, well done, you've learnt your lesson, that's out of the way, boom, here you go, enjoy. It happens every single time.
Yeah.
And it's just having that awareness, having the confidence, again, going back to the confidence in yourself, trusting yourself to make those decisions.
Yeah, 100%. And
that's
it takes
a massive
time.
thing.
Again, I think all of this, and I just want to say something going back to the acceptance, which with health, if people are living with health or any situation, acceptance isn't going to happen overnight. So I think, do not think that one day you're going to wake up and suddenly you're going to have accepted that you've recently had cancer, that you've recently got to fall, like whatever it is in your life, because it doesn't take, it takes time. This journey took me 10 years plus.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that's quite a long time. I was young.
No, but it does take time.
You know what I mean? But I think sometimes people think it's just going to be a quick fix and you're going to be like, fine one day.
And that goes down to all personal development stuff. You know, nothing happens overnight. But what is interesting is that sometimes it feels like it's happened overnight. Yeah. So you do wake up one day and a thought has changed, which will change your life.
Or you've changed you've acted a different way that day.
Yeah, but that has led from the years of consistency.
Yeah, definitely. 100%.
You know, even with me, it's taken me, I started my personal development journey in 2016, you know, 8 years-ish of consistent work and it's ongoing, as we always say.
That's it, it's forever, isn't it? Be there forever. Yeah. And we'll all have dips, because there will be, because life is challenging, whatever's, you know, everyone, there's always going to be something coming up, isn't there?
Yeah, and it goes back to that whole toxic positivity thing where, you know, it's not about, you know, if we're talking about you and your illness, for example, and it's like, it's not about just being really positive and being like, oh my God, I'm fine, I'm great, when actually you're feeling like shit. Yeah, exactly. It's not that. You're not saying you're great. You're going, this is a shit situation, but this is my situation and I'm getting on with it. Yeah, exactly. That's very different. That is what being positive is.
Yeah, 100%. The believing in myself, I think, has been huge. Because I think when that started, and I think, again, that comes from you massively. This woman is a queen, can I just say? Honestly, you have changed my life, Nat. I say this, even my mum was saying this to me the other day, how much you've changed my life. And Kay, they both said it.
Babes.
No, it is.
Please don't make me cry. I've got mascara on today.
Okay, babe. I won't say anymore.
But thank you.
I think that literally, like, you know, there's been big changes this year. I've gone back into employment, haven't I? I've got like my dream job for me, working part-time for a charity that means a lot to me.
Yeah, which we'll talk about in a bit.
Yeah, but I wouldn't have got that before.
Yeah.
There was no way I would have done that before, or like put myself out there, or my public speaking, like I just wouldn't have, or maybe I would have done it, but I would have been stressed. Yeah. I know that's the thing, because I think I said to you, didn't I did a speech, and it was the first time that I wasn't stressed. Yeah. I was like, I'm going in there 5 minutes to go and I'm not stressed. Or like 5 minutes I might be stressed, but not like 5 days, you know?
I remember when you sent me that voice note, and it wasn't even, I didn't even know about the speech until you were literally about to do it, which said a lot in itself, because previously you would have messaged me a week before, or a month before, And I just remember you sending me a voice note being like, oh yeah, I've got this speech, like 5 minutes, like whatever. You're like, I'm so chilled. I was like, yes, I love that.
It is, it's a massive change. I mean, that's what I mean. It's little things that you wouldn't notice. Like I did a speech for work last week, and again, I just did it, and then it was after. I was like, oh my God, like I would have had all that angst before.
Yeah.
And then you feel ill, and then it causes a headache, and then it's like a vicious cycle.
Massively.
I think the thing is, I think also it's knowing your triggers and not letting it get to that point. And like, I don't know how to explain it, but like it's just knowing what's going to impact you and being proactive with it.
Yeah. Absolutely, I couldn't agree more. Just recognising when you're starting to feel a certain way, basically.
And not letting that impact other people as well. Because we've discussed this so much, you and I. But like, if there's something you like, I think again, another thing I've learned from that, pushing yourself, obviously, to do things. And there's been times I've said to you, haven't I, I'm not doing that. And you're like, and I think maybe you could have done that, but I'm better at it now. But also not pushing yourself too much that it then impacts everyone else around you and like say going out or something. Yeah. Because then I think that is a real negative and a negative vibe for everyone else. Yeah. So I think it's like finding that balance.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Which again is trial and error, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like I used to hate trains at night and I still don't particularly like it. It's just my thing, you know.
Yeah.
I've been doing it more. And that's fine. Like I'm doing it, it's fine. But like I wouldn't go if it really caused me. Like I just think sometimes people like push themselves too much, and then it impacts everybody else. Yeah. And that's not that's a really negative vibe in my opinion.
Absolutely. And it goes back to things we've spoken about previously about, you know, you have to fill your own cup up. You have to make yourself feel your best in order to give other people your best as well.
Yeah.
And if you're pushing yourself to a limit, which is literally burning you out and making you feel horrendous, then like you said, that is going to have an impact on everybody else, especially in your case, where those things that might happen if you do burn yourself out are not just what might happen to me.
Yeah.
You know, it's a bit more serious than that.
Yeah, exactly, 100%. And I think it's just the other big thing is just like being honest with people. Like being honest if like I can't do something, if my health isn't that great that day and I need to cancel, and instead of going into London to meet a friend, I'm like, can you actually come over for a coffee?
Yeah.
So don't like isolate yourself completely, or be like, can I have a phone call? Can we FaceTime?
Yeah.
Because I think also I used to have a habit of being like, I can't make it today, and then that will be it. Whereas now I'm like, okay, can we do a FaceTime instead?
Yeah, adapting.
So there's adapting to life, and I think there's so much, like I think so many people now have chronic health and live with something health-wise that, you know, it needs to be spoken about, because it's a journey, and it's just having your own, and everyone's got their own way of dealing with things, but you've just been transformational. I can't even get the word out.
You have transformed yourself, my love. Right, so we still have loads to talk about, and we've been chatting for ages. So we are going to cut this episode in half. So this is the end of part 1. Thank you so much for listening. We hope to see you back for part 2. Before you do come back and listen to part 2, please make sure that you are following, subscribing, liking and sharing. You can find us, I'm saying us as if this is your podcast now, babe. Yeah. Find us on realtalk_with Nat on Instagram. You can also find us on Spotify, YouTube, Spotify for podcasters, Apple Podcasts, and I think that's it. So we will see you for part 2. Bye guys.
Bye.